Got to give the people what they want. Fast, I'm back. We got a bunch to do right here with this E idea, so we're just gonna get it started, all right? So, you're probably gonna pause and write this down right now. E, what does it mean and how can I use it, all right? So, I'm gonna build an argument again for you, build this idea of where E comes from. So, when I'm finding compound interest, you should remember that the more often you compound your interest, the more money and actual interest you actually make, okay? So, we're gonna work from this idea, and E works from this idea that we have some kind of account that makes 100% interest. Right? In other words, you would double your money in a year or whatever. You don't find those too often, but we're going to work from this idea. And we're going to see how the more often I compound my money, the more money I actually make, the more actual interest actually exists. So let's start with this equation. I got $50, and in all these situations, I start off with $50, and they tell me, we're going to double your money. We're going to give you 100% interest. Alright, so I have $50 right here. And remember, in compound interest, you take 1 plus the interest rate. Well, 100% interest is 1. So you have 1 plus 1, right? Which this makes sense. You told me you're going to double my money in a year. So I have $50. 1 plus 1 is 2, right? And it happens every year. So, from there, I end up with 50 times 2, which is $100. Right? After 1 year, compounded once. You know, I actually double it, right? And I get $100, okay? And again, just to make sure that we're clear, because 100 divided by 50 is 2. So the actual, rate of change is times 2, because I'm doubling it. That's my 100% interest, okay? That's if it's compounded just once within a year. Let's take this same situation and let's now say, well, what if I say we're going to compound it 12 times a year? And we've done this before, right? So I got my $50 again, and I got a 1 plus. Now I got to do my 100% interest, right? Which is the same one, but I got to divide it into 12 equal pieces. And then I got to turn around and I have to compound it 12 times, right? So I have this. So this is just the compound interest stuff that we did. So this becomes a 50. This becomes 1 over 12 is 0.083. So this becomes 1.083. 1 plus 1 over 12. And then to the 12th power, because I have to do it 12 times in that year. All right, so just keeping with this, I got my $50. And 1.083 to the 12th power is 2.603. This is the key, right? My $50 last time, I doubled it and I got 100. It was times 2. But now my $50 is actually more than times 2. It's times 2.603. So at the end of one year, I now have about $130, not 103, excuse me. Instead of just having $100, I have $130.17, right? Because the more I compounded it, I actually made more money because of that, all right? So this is now bigger. First it was multiplied by 2, now 50, my money is being multiplied by 2.603. Well, what if I take it a step further? What if they said, I got you, Bass. No, we're not going to compound your money once. We're not going to compound it 12 times. We're going to compound it 1,000 times in that year. So let's look at what this says. So I say, okay, I got my $50. I have my 1 plus 1 over 1,000 is 0.001. So this is 1.001. But now I got to compound it 1,000 times, right? So I have my $50, and 1.001 to the 1,000th power is 2.716. See how this is happening? 50 was only multiplied by 2. The more I compounded it, now is multiplied by 2.603. The more I compounded it, now it's multiplied by 2.716. And I see after 1 year in this situation, excuse me, I don't need the 50 anymore. After 1 year in this situation, I end up with $135.84, right? I only had 100 here, now I got 130, now I got 135.84. Okay? So the more I compounded, the more actual money I make. All right? I'm going to pause right here, and then we're going to talk about what does this have to do with E. All right, so E is basically the growth rate that you get when you are compounding constantly. You're not compounding 1,000 times. You're not compounding 1,000,000 times, more than that. You're compounding every single moment, like a countless number of times, all right? And E is the growth rate. The more you compound, the closer you're going to get to this number, 2.718. This is the limit. This is the most interest that you could ever make by continuing to compound more and 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 more. All right? So E represents, if I am compounding continuously, that growth rate will be 2.718. Remember the last growth rate was 2.603 and 2.716. Even once we get to 1 over 1,000, we were getting pretty close to E. Compounding 1,000 times will get you pretty close to E. But the more times you compound, it's going to get you closer and closer and closer to 2.718. So if you're doing it continuously. So I can use E in situations where I have continuously compounded accounts or situations. And there are accounts out there that say they are compounded all the time, continuously. So when that happens, I use E as my as the growth rate. Okay? So let's take the same situation. So if I have $300 and they promise to give me 100% interest, and it's compounded continuously, I can write this equation. I can just take my $300 times E, because I know that's what the growth rate is, because it's compounded continuously, to the X. So in this case, it would be after 1 year, X would be 1, right? So 300 times 2.718 to the first power if it's 1 year, or to the second power if it's 2 years, or whatever from there. So E is like this shortcut. Like, I know that's what it's going to be. I can put it in. All right, so now we're going to talk about how to use that even more. All right, so this is all good. It's all great and lovely if I'm getting 100% interest. But I hate to break it to you, there are very few accounts that you are ever going to find where you're going to make 100% interest on your money. That just doesn't typically happen. So how can I use E for something that's being compounded continuously, but I'm not getting 100%? Well, here's what we can do. First of all, let's look at the situation where you get 100%, right? So I want to know my money. I got $300. I know it's being compounded continuously. That's the E. And I just need to know the years, okay? So there's a way to shortcut this, and it's going to be a way to help you remember. Y equals P. Principal is the same as initial value. How much money did you start with? It's called the principal when you're doing banking and accounting. So it's P, that's your 300, times E, which is E, times your time, right? It's almost like PET, right? P times E to the T. That would be at 100%. And that's what we just did on this last one. But again, like I said, most people aren't going to say, hey, I'm going to give you 100% continuously compounded interest on your investment. But they might tell you, hey, guess what? I'm going to give you 20% on a continuously compounded investment. And that's what this situation is. So now it's a little different, because to figure out my money, I start off with $300, right? It's continuously compounded, so I need to use E, but here's where the difference is, right? Before it was just times the time, but now I'm only getting 20% of this E, not 100%. So this is how I show that the account gives me 20% as opposed to the 100% here. All right, so I put that in here. So it's e to the exponent of 0.20 times x. But let's see how that actually plays out with this little abbreviation. Y equals 300 is still my principal, P. E is still E. That 0.20 is called your R. That is your rate, right? That's the rate that we're working with. They're not giving us 100%, they're giving us 20%. And X is still T, being time. And that spells out PERT, P times E to the RT, right? This is the equation for continuously compounded accounts, right? You get any account that has a continuously compounded rate, this is what you use. How much did you start with? Times E to the power of whatever the rate is that they're giving you times the time. Okay? So in this situation, it would be y equals 300 times e to the 0.2 times 1. Let me see, how much am I getting in a year? Which is y equals 300 times e is 2.718 to the 0.2 power, right? Which is y equals 300. 2.718 to the 0.2 power is 1.221. And that makes sense, right? This is how much I would have made if I was getting 100% interest, but I'm only getting 20% interest. So I'm not taking 300 and timesing it by 2.7 or so. I'm only multiplying it by 1.2 or so. So I'm only getting 20%, not 100% interest. And when I multiply those together, I end up with $366.41. So on my $300, if I continuously compound it at 20%, after 1 year, I'd have $366.41. Okay? This is the equation you have to know for continuously compounded accounts. That's it. Bass, I'm out. Hope you all are having / had a good weekend.